Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jaclyn. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jaclyn at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jaclyn KERBECK, and our show today is presenting Pet Psychic Amina, and we have a special guest with us also. So let me do the honors of presenting Pet Psychic Amina. Here she is. Hello.
Hello. I love Fridays.
I've been thinking of you more and more, which is kind of scary. I'm like, why am I thinking of her so much? No, I'm kidding. But I was in the garage and I saw one of those giant palmetto bugs. And for people who are joining us for the first time, I have had a lot of fears when it comes to certain animals and creatures and things. And Amina has really taught me the importance of coexisting and that every creature has a right to be here. So I was in the garage and I saw this creature and it was sort of scurrying around and it stopped. And I said, listen, I am really scared of you. I'm just telling you this, but you do whatever you're going to do over there. I'm going to say over here doing the laundry, please do not come near me. It was fine. But before I would have been screaming and running into the house for my mother to come and get it. And now we're both there and there was no problem. So thank you.
Right. Exactly. And you know what, if that's what everybody just takes away, something that you're more comfortable in your own skin, in your own, because everything you said, Dr. Jaclyn, is so vital. It shouldn't be humiliating. It shouldn't be terrible. It's your deep, dark secret. I'm afraid of whatever, deep water, plants, whatever. People have a phobia of everything. There's no reason to be ashamed of that. It is a human thing. It's an animal thing too, not as much. But reach out and try new things. You'd be surprised. I didn't think I'd ever eat anything, than, meat and potatoes as I grew up, because that's all my dad would let my mom cook. And I eat Persian food. I eat Chinese food now, and it's a great thing. And you're learning yours. And you're learning yours. I thought I'd never try any other food. Never.
It is definitely good to try new things, and it's also good to put ourselves out there and be open to learning what we can do to find ourselves, to listen to our integrity, to be one with ourselves. And we've got a great guest backstage who's going to help us walk us through that process. But before we bring her out, I'm going to spotlight you, Amina, for people joining us for the very first time, to share a little bit about your background and how you bring value to your clients.
As Dr. Jaclyn said, coexisting is a huge part of my heart work. And that is what my job is. It's hard work. I'm very, very lucky to work with animals and people and bridging that gap of communication. I understand what an ear twitch means and a tail twitch means and a fur standing on edge means. And I have taken that passion and backed it up with college education, a vet assistant, working with the medical side, and then spending 10 years in a wildlife sanctuary where animals that had been habituated to people or didn't want to be movie stars or whatever were illegally owned by humans, and it's not allowed in California. Those animals were put into this sanctuary. We tried to make their life as enriching as possible, even though they are basically in jail. So I hope to explain all that, answer your questions. That is the biggest part of, I think, Dr. Jaclyn's platform, is we're here to answer your questions, not just talk about our trajectory. So join us every week and listen to the record, because I hope you will ask me questions and I can bring them up on the show.
Thank you very much, Amina, and thank you for sharing your wisdom and your expertise with our audiences. Now, I would love for you to give an introduction to our guest today and how you two connected.
Oh, and that's the neat thing, is because you almost, the way you introduced with the bugs in your garage and being afraid and all these types of things is I absolutely love your platform. I'm sure you hear me ooze over it every week because I'm so, so grateful to have this really shining, wonderful, and being in the company that I am on the show. And I am always looking for somebody who's doing heart work. And Hema LinkedIn showed me Hema, and I got to read her profile, read all her stuff. I instantly messaged her, found her in another country at the time, as far as I know. So we just hit it off. We just hit it off. We're both doing heart work. And you'll notice that a lot with my guests, whatever that means. You're taking care of people, you're taking care of animals, you're taking care of the planet, you're taking care of your health. There are so many modalities of heart work, and they're all incredibly important to a better part of your life. She has so many amazing experiences. I have not memorized them because I want to listen along with you. But she and I got on a phone call a few days ago and just we could have talked for hours. And we decided not to, so we both get some rest for the show, but also so I hear it for the first some of it for the first time, just as you will. So join me in introducing this wonderful woman doing wonderful work.
Welcome, the body and soul healer. Her name is Hema, and she is the holistic mystic. So we're happy to have you. Hi.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks, Dr. Jaclyn. Thanks, AMINAH. What a great introduction. I loved everything.
I
loved
tell
everything
the
you had to say.
truth. You know, we really hit it off. I couldn't believe it because Dr. Jaclyn, I'm messaging her on LinkedIn at night in California, yes, but I'm like, because you don't know where everybody is. And I honestly don't care because a message is pick it up when you get it. And she messaged me right back and I was like, oh, she's there. And it was so smooth. It's kind of scary.
Well, you know what they say, when things go smoothly, it's because they're meant to be. So yeah, I'm very honored and excited to be here. I'm eager to get into our conversation.
I'm so glad.
I am too. I'd love for you to start with what is a holistic mystic? What do you do?
Great.
How do you
It's a
help
great
people?
question. That's a great question. So, you know, I use the name Holistic Mystic. I actually have my own radio show on KSCO Radio, and it just it was a nice little way to describe what I do. And so the way AMINAH talked about being a pet psychic, well, I'm a people psychic. And so I'm a psychic and an empath and a medium. So a medium means that I actually communicate with spirits that have passed on. And so putting all of that together, it's really about holistic healing. So I use mystical capabilities that I have, the gifts that I have, to help people move through blocks that they have in their lives and really come out the other end living a more impassioned, free, and abundant life. So that's what the holistic part is about, the holistic healing, and the mystical is about all the other gifts that I bring to the table. So it's exciting.
Thank you for sharing that. Well, I have you up on Spotlight. Can you share with us, when did you realize you had these gifts?
Yeah, you know, I realized at a very young age. So I might have been 9 when I tried to start meditating. I remember sitting in my bedroom, trying to focus on a spot in the universe. It didn't work very well because I was only 9. But when I really found out that I had some gifts is when I dreamed about my grandfather's death in like great detail. And it was about 2 days before he passed away. And he passed away unexpectedly. And so when we got the phone call, you know, we got all the details of how he had passed away. And it turns out that everything that I dreamed was exactly what had happened in real life. So that's when I started on my journey. I was maybe 13, 14 years old when that happened. And it just launched me on this journey of figuring out, well, what is this gift and what does this mean? I intuitively knew that it was something more. And then later, about 3 or 4 years later, I found out that I could do hands-on healing. And so I started developing those skills. I found a mentor to work with me. And just as I've gotten older, different gifts have started dropping in at different times. And so now I offer like a wide range of services that are just based on my natural born gifts. I feel very fortunate to be here to talk about that.
Thank you. Thank you. I just have to ask you, because I've asked AMINAH this, when you realized you these gifts when you were this young person and you dreamt about your grandfather's death, how did other people receive it? What did people say? How did they act toward you?
Yeah, you know, it wasn't received very well. When I told my mom, because it was actually my maternal grandfather that passed away, when I told her, she was very quiet. I don't think she really knew what to say or how to react. And on her side of the family, there is a little bit more mystical capabilities. I know my dad didn't understand it at all. And he was just like, he was a little maybe frightened of the things that I would say would often come to happen. And so he, you know, he would say a few things that weren't too complimentary. But in deep in myself, I kind of knew that this was special, and I actually didn't let their opinions affect me or sway me in any way, not on my path of discovery anyway. So, and now people are very receptive. But, you know, I have a long history of not really talking about my gifts. I worked in high tech for a very long time. And so I had to be careful what I shared, what I didn't share. But I'm out now, so I'm talking more and more about these gifts.
Well, we're certainly glad that you are. I know that for a certain period of time, if someone had gifts like yours or like Amina's, people would put them in a box and say, "Oh, put that away. I don't want to deal with that." Now it's like, "Oh, what can you help me with? How can I how can I contact you? What do you see? What do you feel?" So it is amazing how things have really changed. Amina, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it just tickles me to death because you know, I think Hema and I were separated at birth or something, and my dad handled it a lot better. But honestly, I didn't go public until both my parents had passed. It just was my time. I was looked at as, you know, well, she's a little different. Hema knows what I'm talking about, and because I always knew what was going on with the cat or the dogs or whatever. And we were a terrible family for pets because my parents and my siblings they just didn't have any and that type of stuff. And I've lived what spay and neutered looks like. We had a cat that was in and out of our house and we loved her dearly, but every year we had a litter. Every year we had to find them homes. And so it really what it did for me, and Hema, I bet this is a question more to you than a statement, is it was, I believe, my teacher. I believe it was me seeing it on the ground, not only in my own family. So it was personal as a very small child watching these kittens born over and over and over and over and over. And then when my mom finally had it about 10 years in, took her to the vet, she died. The stress was so tragic for her. And she was already pregnant again. And that kind of stuff. But so you learn it can be too late to step in. So know what you're making your choices. But I have more compassion, I think. Yeah, I think I have more compassion for people who take a longer time to get to different information. We're all going to get to it when it's right for us. Even when we can see tragedies coming, you have free will. As him and I know, you have free will to take our advice or not take our advice at whatever time you feel like it is. So it's really exciting to see somebody go through the same thing in childhood and go, yeah, that's not a thing. Yes, that's a thing.
Hema, I would love for you to share with us. You mentioned you have a radio station, which congratulations, that's really cool. Tell us about how we can find the channel, and then what are the types of shows that you have so that people know they can get involved.
Oh, sure. I'm happy to share that. I'm actually on a local talk radio station in Santa Cruz, California. It's called KSCO, and the show is called The Holistic Mystic. So it's on every Friday night from 7 to 8 p.m. And I talk about everything mystical. So, for example, last week or the week before, I talked about different gifts that people can have: extrasensory perception, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. So I talked about that, and I explain what they are, and I take phone calls also. So people call in for readings, for healings. I often get asked to contact someone who's passed on from the beyond. So I do all of that on the show. It's been really exciting. I've been doing that for about a year and a half or so, and every week is a different topic. So I really get into and geek out a little bit about some different topics. One show was about meditation. Another one was about astral traveling. Another one was about talking to spirits. So I try to touch on different topics, keep people interested and engaged and informed. I mean, that's really what I want to do there.
Right.
Thanks for sharing that. I was wondering if you could also elaborate I've been told by many people, I've been reading things about the energy level in terms of the entire planet. The energy levels are shifting, or Mercury's in retrograde. I'm not really sure what all these things mean, but I do know that I feel myself personally, a lot of things have been coming up for me. I've had a lot of emotions. What is it that what can you share about this, just in general, from a high level?
I think the pandemic has really changed things for a lot of people. I'm hoping, and I do feel this energetically with people who come to see me, but all of that has made us revisit what's important to us, what are the things that we want to focus our time on, how we want to live. So I think some of the shifts that you're seeing there, Dr. Jaclyn, have to do with just us as a society, as a species, trying to just really think about what is important, what is the next thing. And astrology can have a lot of play in that. So Mercury in retrograde, every time Mercury goes into retrograde, something happens with my communication, and planets can affect us. And so there are some energies happening. For the longest time, the planet Uranus was in transit through a lot of different houses. And Uranus is a planet of great disruption. And so people have been feeling that in their lives. So I just think right now what's happening is that there's this big awakening. We are awakening as humans to what is possible, but also to the real nature of life. And, I can get very meta and spiritual about this, but it's about really understanding what life is, and everything else is an illusion. So chasing after material goods, cars, and money, that's not the thing that's going to give us lasting happiness. And I think people are realizing that. And that's what I think is happening. There's just big awakening that's happening right now in society. And some of it is influenced by planets, but much of it, I think, is just where we are in terms of our evolution.
Great answer. Thank you. I teach people how to listen at an elevated level. And one of the courses that I have that I teach with someone who's over in the UK, it's called The Transformation, the Shadows of Ourselves. And it's basically about leaving the 3D materialism, capitalistic world and moving into the 5D heart centric. But what do we do in the middle? And then all these trends that we get ourselves caught up in. And it could be a trend of shopping, or it could be a trend of feeling bad for ourselves, or a trend of judging other people. So I'd love to have your thoughts for our audience about this 4D and what we can actually do to leave that materialistic life behind and embrace a heart-centric world like you both are doing.
Well, here's what I think. I think that we, as from a very small age, particularly in the Western world, we're not taught to love ourselves. And I think that that is fundamentally the biggest problem in our society today. We're not taught to accept ourselves, to love ourselves the way that we are. And from a very young age, we get bombarded with images and messages from social media, from TV, that what we are is not good enough. And so that's what drives a capitalistic society, is this deep need to fill that hole that they've created, that the media has created. And so if we take a step back and really learn to accept ourselves for who we are, for what we look like, no matter what it is, and learn to have true self-love, I think that's where the shift is going to happen. And so to be able to do that, it's really about becoming more aware of what's happening inside our heads. How do we talk to ourselves? How do we talk to our bodies? How do we talk to ourselves about the things that we're doing? And then how does that manifest itself in our life externally? These are all really important things. And when I work with clients, one of the very first things we do is focus on awareness, becoming aware. What's happening with your thought patterns? What's happening with your life patterns? What's happening with your relationship patterns? And it's only through awareness that you can then make the change that needs to happen.
And thank you. Well, I have you up here. Did you feel that we have to go backwards and analyze our childhood or traumatic things that happened to us? Or can we just let that go and just embrace what is today?
Well, it depends on the person, but I'm not a fan of talk therapy. I think it has a place, but often what talk therapy does is it makes you revisit the same trauma over and over and over again. It's like watching those 9/11 videos over and over. You just relive the trauma, and you don't need to do that. It's good to acknowledge, though, what the source of the trauma could be, And then what I help my clients do is release the trauma from their body, from their energy field. So, okay, root cause analysis is good. It, came from my mother, or somebody talked to me incorrectly, or my teacher said this. To recognize where it comes from and then know how to release it. And many people don't know how to release these things. That's where someone like me comes in. Like Amina is the pet psychic, I'm the people psychic. And I help people release that so that you don't have to revisit that again. You can literally let go of it and just, free your life up from carrying trauma around all the time.
Thank you so much. I could ask all the questions going forward, but I'm not going to do that. I have so many, but Amina, I'll go over to you for a question.
I'm having more fun going, because I haven't had enough time. But I think, Hema, one of the really valuable things that I hope everybody really heard you say is that we can fix these things, that we can, you hear about past trauma and lives or whatever, wherever you're at, it can happen. That it might need a little more creativity. It might need a different coach. And I mean all of them, therapists, or everybody who's cheering you on. It might need a change. I know for me, my home life was toxic. So as soon as I hit 18, my parents were like, you graduated yesterday. And the suitcase has been back for 3 years. So, and then start over to have a different relationship with my parents and to say, this is what will make me healthy. It might be that simple. It might be that simple that you change the color of the walls. People don't realize that colors, scents, odors, where you live, where you make your home, how you feel about your home, it does enter into how you feel. And people don't understand that it can be that simple. And I love that you can get as deep or, eat better food. Sometimes it's just that your skin is angry at you or your stomach is because you're consuming something that you didn't know wasn't good for you on whatever level, allergic, medical, or it just doesn't like you. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, healing happens at different levels with different tools. It's all about, there's the physical aspect of healing, but then there's also a metaphysical aspect to healing, which people don't really realize. And it's all related to each other. I mean, the food that you eat can cause the emotions that you're feeling, which can cause you to revisit the trauma that you had. So, it's about working with someone who can help untangle all of that. But I agree, like healing is multi-spoked, and you have to be able to look at all of those areas: physical activity, what you eat, what are your emotions, what's your spiritual practice, and are you meditating? What's your stress level? There's just a whole gamut of things to look at. But my specialty is really looking at what are the patterns that you're living in your life. Do you feel like you're like dating the same person over and over again, but they have a different name? Do you feel like you're working for the same boss, even though it's many different companies that you've worked at? It's because you're living a pattern. And if it keeps coming up, it's because you need to learn from the pattern and move through the pattern. So that's what I help people do, is acknowledge and recognize what their pattern is and then move through it.
And are you able to work with people anywhere in the world through technology? Yeah.
Yep, I do remote energy healings. I work with people on Zoom, on the phone. That's how I spend a lot of my time. So and in person, of course, in person is always very powerful. But with COVID and the pandemic, we've learned to adapt. And energy work and psychic work, there's no barriers to it. We're all connected at a much different level than physically. So I can pick up information and do healings wherever.
And if someone knows that they need a change, they've got to do something, and they want to contact you, but they're not really sure that they believe in the afterlife, for example, or whatever it's called, woo-woo and all, they haven't bought in, so to speak, or they don't believe in 5D. Can you still work with them anyway?
Absolutely. They don't have to be believers. There's many different tools that I can use. The Psychic Insights help me drill in, though, specifically into what that person needs. If they don't believe it, that's okay, as long as the thing that we do helps them. And I've had a lot of really good success with my clients. So you can contact me even if you're not a believer. I used to be a little bit skeptical. I mean, I'm trained as an engineer, and I mentioned before I worked in high tech. So I have a little bit of healthy skepticism too. But for me, my lived experience, the things that I have experienced, and things that have happened when I'm working with clients. I mean, I can't deny that. And that's the data that I use to support my belief in what I'm doing. So even if you don't necessarily believe in all of that, come and see me anyway, because there's insights that I can give you that maybe you can't get yourself.
Right.
Thank you. I was wondering, given the fact that you have all these gifts and a lot of it's centered around energy, do you feel that you had a calling to go into high tech because of all the energy there?
That's interesting. You know, my calling to go into high tech was more about when I was younger, about making money. I got to be honest. So, you know, I was just very, very like, you know, very practical. I was very practical in that way. I thought, well, you know, I'm good at math and I'm good at science, so where should I go? And that's basically what it was. But I really enjoyed it. It was exciting. It still is exciting. All that technology, how it's changing people's lives. I worked on all this stuff that had to do with the internet, and you know, all of the applications that we're now seeing come to life on the internet are papers that I wrote way, way back in the day. So yeah, it was exciting at the time. A different kind of energy.
That's really neat. And I would love for you to share just a little bit. You touched on it, but the fact that we have so many ways to communicate and everything is just energy, how has your ability to really connect with people been grown, I should say, grown as a result of these shifts and transformations in technology?
Oh, I think that's a great question. I mean, Zoom is now a household name. No one knew what Zoom was before the pandemic hit, and now everybody's using Zoom. And hopefully, you invested a little bit in Zoom stock. But I think that that's the key thing. Is now video conferencing is just becoming very run of the mill. It's like old hat. I know families who are having dinners over Zoom, and you know, even though they're remote or they're you know, protected or trying to protect themselves because of COVID. So it has changed a lot. But I'm going to tell you something. Zoom, it's nothing like being a psychic and being able to connect to somebody through energy. And so there's a lot more information that comes through that way. And here's the thing. Here's the kicker. We've always been connected like this. People have always been connected through an energy field, and we've never really needed Zoom to do that. But you know, the physical tools help for people who feel like they can't connect into that energy field. But that's how it works. We're all connected through an energy field. You know, the movie The Matrix kind of had it right in that regard. And so Zoom just helps us visualize that and make it more physical and concrete. But we can do it without the tools.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And in the work that you have with the radio station and then also with your clients, does something ever come up, or does this ever occur where you get a message for someone and they haven't asked for the message, but you have the message and it might
Yes.
not be good? What do you do then?
Yeah, that's a great. I've had to learn this over time, but you know, sometimes I would have these messages. Well, I only did that once, went to somebody and they didn't really receive it very well. So now I ask for consent before I share a message. And, you know, it happened to me. I'd like to tell this story. I was actually on a business trip, and for my job when I was working in tech, and I was in line at a Starbucks, and I got this really strong message, like very clear message for this woman standing in front of me in line. So I kind of reluctantly tapped on her shoulder and I said, "Hey, you don't know me, but okay, this is what I am. I have these psychic abilities. I have a message for you. Would you like to receive it?" And she was a little uncomfortable, I think. And I just learned, okay, I have to be careful how I share messages, because not everybody can see the world that way. For me, it's just very natural. I get, you know, a message from a spirit. Okay, great. I got a message from a pet. Okay, awesome. Because to me, everything is connected, but I realize that not everybody lives that way. So I'm careful. I ask for consent, and I ask people to keep an open mind about the things that I share with them. But yeah, I get messages a lot for people. I'm just careful how I share it.
So what happened? We're on the edge of our seats there. You tapped her on the shoulder. What happened?
Oh, well, it's kind of funny. So I tapped her on the shoulder and I asked to share the message, and it was something about her sister that my spirit guides were telling me. And so she listened and she says, "My goodness," she's like, "you're like right on." And then she went into fear, which was really unfortunate. And she said, "Are you with the FBI? Are you spying on me?" I'm like, "No, I'm not spying on you." I tried to explain to her more. She didn't really get it, and she left the line. So I'm hoping that the message that I gave her helped at some level. But yeah, it's not always a positive thing, but most people are really happy to receive messages. Like people call in on the radio show, and I pick up stuff for them all the time, and I get very heartfelt thank yous and grateful notes and messages. I even get gifts sometimes, which I don't ask for, but you know, people are just so grateful that they want to do something. So yeah, it's super cool to be able to do this.
Yeah, I can see how it would be really life-changing, and
Yeah.
yeah, as long as people are open to it. And I love how you asked for that consent. That's brilliant.
Yeah, everything is about consent, and I'm very careful about that. Even when I'm doing a meditation on somebody, I ask for consent, because you know, reading someone's energy field, that's like reading the open tabs on their browser, or you know, going into their home and snooping around in their medicine cabinet. I am very careful, so I always ask. I'm like, can I do this? Can I read your energy? Is it okay if I pick up information for you? And so only when they say yes do I do that. And the lucky thing for me is I'm able to turn it on and turn it off. So it's not like I'm walking around, you know, in an airport, or you know, inundated with information. If I turned it on, I would be, but I can, you know, I can tune a lot of that stuff out, unless it's something super, super urgent that somebody needs to hear. But for me, I walk around being of service. That's my life now. I want to be of service to people, because people can live better lives than what they're living, especially if you're stuck in a pattern or you're feeling unsatisfied. There's a way out. There's a way my life, that's what I'm dedicating my life to now, is helping others.
Absolutely.
I
And
love
I
that.
find that it's really helpful, because I get accosted regularly with spirit like that, is to just say, hey, I have a message from so and so, if you'd like it. I don't want to intrude, you know, all this kind of stuff. So that there's a footing of, this isn't about us. This isn't about we. It is simply somebody passed us a note that we can read without opening, and we are, I believe, obligated to at least offer and say, you have free will. There's no do or die. You're not going to, you know, walk across the street and get hit by a car. We don't get usually those kind of messages, but it's somebody that feels so strongly, that has passed use the time, and they have that message of saying they really need to hear me. They really need to hear me, and I can see that you have a gift. And I remember the first time, Hema, I don't know if you remember the first time, but I remember the first time, you know, whatever, now it's 10 years ago, and I'm like, are you kidding? It was like a Disneyland or the movies or someplace so inappropriate to call somebody and say, your brother has a message for you, and blah blah blah. So yeah, we try to go gentle, because the message obviously must be important. Most people who have passed have been waiting to help or tell them something.
It's true.
Even if it's just, I love you. Because so many people miss that moment to tell their loved ones that they do you know I love? Do you know I loved you? I'm sorry about that last argument we had, you know, because death happens everywhere, at every age, at every time.
Yeah,
So
I agree with you. There's like
sometimes
three.
these moments are golden, and that's what we can do.
I love your analogy about passing a note. I usually talk about it like, well, I'm a radio receiver, you know, and I can just tune into a certain frequency, and I hear things. And so I also feel like I need to pass them on if the person's open. But there's typically three or four things that spirits want people to know, that they're trying to contact. One is, that they love them. They've always loved them, that the love is unconditional, even regardless of what has happened, you know, on the earthly plane. And two, typically, I'm proud of you is the next thing that spirits want them to know. And then the third thing is that they're fine, that death is nothing to be afraid of, that actually it's really quite amazing. And so, those are usually the top three things that spirits want to communicate.
Because they want to know if they're in pain, especially if they die tragically from whatever, car accident or whatever. Talking to my best friend's parents who died in a plane crash, single engine, and you wonder how terrifying that would have been, or whatever. And you walk around as a family member going, oh, I wish I just, that was so horrible. And people make themselves sick for a lifetime, reliving that pain of, oh my gosh, my family must have they burned in a fire or whatever. And if we can bring even 5% of some kind of beginning of healing, there's a start. And I know him and I are working in that heart place, and we will go up to you and tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, I have a message if you'd like it. Well, what did
Thank
you do?
you.
Listen to my head? No, we don't do that.
Emma, I have a question for you on another subject. For people out in the audience who are thinking, I'd like to have a podcast, I'd like to have a live broadcast, I'd like to have a radio show. What are some tips you can give them to how to be a successful interviewer or how to have a successful radio show?
Oh, that's a great question. As a solopreneur, I've worked really hard to get to where I am, and I have other ideas of where I'd like to go. But it's just persistence. That's what I found: persistence and consistency. So I would say yes to, and I still do, to most things. If someone asked me to present somewhere or attend an event, I would say yes. Even if I wasn't presenting, because I could always learn and I could always support the other person. And eventually I started getting asked to lead things. I'm a yoga teacher as well. And so I started leading a lot of yoga. And then that led into other things where I started talking about trauma release and energy and how to feel into energy. And so it just became things that built upon each other, and you have to be just consistent and persistent and not give up. And it's taken a few years for me to get to this point. The radio show was also one of those things where I actually showed up to help survivors from a really horrible fire in the Santa Cruz area. And I was working as a volunteer, just giving freely of my time. And people started coming to me just because they knew. I hadn't advertised that I was a psychic or anything, but just to get consolation and to get some support. And so I was doing a lot of counseling and a lot of helping. And that led to me getting the radio show, just making connections through that. So I'm always looking to be of service, not for my own gain, but sometimes connections can happen that way, and you just have to be open and receptive. But again, it's about consistency and persistence.
Thank you for sharing that. And can you let our audience know, what do you do for self-care when you're dealing with energy all the time?
That's
How do you
great.
keep yourself protected and safe?
That's a great question. Maybe I'm not as diligent around my self-care as perhaps I should be. But what I do is I do meditate every day. I actually try to make sure I eat healthily, and I do energy clearings all the time. So when I'm working with people energetically, I do clearings and groundings, and I take time for myself. I'm a musician too. So playing music for me is like the best remedy for my soul. So I play some music, sing a little bit, and that just brings me right back into myself. But also being with nature. I love being at the ocean or in the trees. So getting time in nature is really important. So those are some things I do for self-care. Bubble bath, maybe every now and again. Yeah.
They're all good tips. And in terms of what you have projected for the future, where do you see yourself going in your career?
Oh, that's another great question. My dream is I actually would like to open up a holistic healing center where I help people understand how to tap into their own energy and use their own energy for healing purposes for themselves and then for others. And I do believe that everyone has this innate capability and capacity. So I'm going to put it out there right now. I'm looking for apprentices who want to learn how to tap more into their energy and use their energetics. You can actually look me up on my website, hemaholisticmystic.com, and schedule some time with me, because that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who really want to understand how to use their own energy for their healing and for healing others. And there's just so much more to that. And that's what excites me. That's what I'd like to have, is a healing center with different modalities where people can come and really know that it's a safe space, but where they're going to experience big transformations.
And where do you see it being located?
Oh, that's the question of the day. Don't know yet. Somewhere warm with palm trees. That's how far I've gotten so far. I'm waiting for the universe to show me and guide me along the way. But I've looked at places like Costa Rica, Southern California, Mexico, and still looking to see what feels right. But it'll come when the time is right.
Exactly.
Thank you. And for people who are interested in being apprentices, any certain qualifications they should have?
You know, it would be a conversation with me to understand where they are on their spiritual path and journey. Everybody's different. I'm not looking for a specific qualification. So, for example, you know, I'm not a Reiki person. I'm not a Reiki master. These are things that I was born with, and I've learned over my life how to manage that energy and how to channel it and what to do with it. And that's what I want to teach to others. So, if someone is just on the beginning steps of their path, but they feel like they have a calling to do this, I think that's probably the best thing.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot from you, and I just love your demeanor and
Thank
your
you.
energy. It's very I think like just coming through the computer, I just feel like much better.
Thank you,
So,
Dr. Jaclyn. That's my goal. Thank you. Your questions were great.
Ever.
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. So once again, I just want you to share with people, especially those people who cannot read the banners that we've had up here and people listening on the radio, what are the various ways to contact you, to follow you, to listen to you on the radio?
Yeah, you can actually contact me. You can go to my website, www.hemaholisticmystic.com. So that's HEMA holisticmystic.com. And on there, you'll read all about me, and you can actually schedule some time with me if you want to talk about the Energy Apprentice program. You can listen to me on ksco.com every Friday night from 7 to 8 p.m., the Holistic Mystic Show. And you can actually listen to previous shows. You don't have to listen live, but would love if you called in with a question or a request for a reading. That's always fun. And if you want to send me an email directly, you can send me an email, hm@ksco.com. So I look forward to hearing from people.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, you've been a great guest. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom. You are welcome to come back on any of our other shows. We have about 20 to 25 live broadcasts each week.
I look forward to that. Thank you. Thank you, AMINAH. Thank you, Dr. Jaclyn.
Thank you. Have a beautiful weekend, and we hope to see you again soon.
You too. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you so much, AMINAH, for bringing her to the platform. What a gift.
Yeah, and I'm so fortunate to be networking out, and you and I know you drip, and I've been dripping for months of finding the right people and that have just the heart work that you and I are about, and you've covered so many things. It's just heartwarming to hear that you can be just yourself. You can be whoever you are and whatever you want to make of it, and not only make a living but be accepted. And she is showing that, and I hope that I am showing that, because when I stepped out in my very religious family and that type of stuff, and they're still in part of my life, but it was like, oh, there she goes again, being weird. and it's okay. It's okay for us because we know things and we're supported by wonderful people like you who just say, no, people need to know that there is a way we can love and coexist and be a part of it. And she's just been so dynamic just to have in my own life and now a professional one. So I was very thrilled that we got her in, and you can see why I kind of pushed, like, no, you really need this one. You really need to get this one.
Definitely.
And I don't want her to get too busy, 3 weeks from now. So thank you so much for a wonderful platform and being able to share these amazing people that are put into my path. So,
well, thank you, AMINAH. I really enjoyed doing this work with you. And I'd love for you to share with our audience how they can connect with you and who you'd like to reach out to.
Absolutely. If you have pets or you had pets, I do have a gift in talking to people and animals that have passed. And just like Hema and I talked about, you don't have to be in my presence. I have clients all over the world, and I just need to get on a phone call. Yes, we can do Zoom. I don't charge more for it, but it is your energy. It is as an empath, I can feel your happy, sad, mad, glad, and where you're struggling. I'm also a trainer and have worked in the vet clinic as a vet assistant. And so I can talk medical and say, it's time to see the vet. It's time to get a trainer, or this is what you can do. As Dr. Jaclyn will attest, I try to really find some clever ways to just use what you have around the house to deal with spiders or to deal with rats or bugs or behavior issues with your animals. There are simpler ways, and then we can step it up from there. I'm just an email away, so that's bridging bridgingworlds2018@gmail. And that is the email address. If you want to know all about me, bridgingworlds.us. And Facebook, it's all fun, games, and learning. So join me anytime and every Friday here on USA Global TV with Dr. Jaclyn.
Thank you so much, Amina. It's a pleasure seeing you and engaging with you and with Hema. I wish you a beautiful weekend, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye for now. Hello, everyone. We are closing out another week. I don't know if we had 25 shows or 24 shows, but I stand for all my shows. And at the end of the week, I just reflect on what an absolute gift it is that we have people from all over the world who come here and share their stories, and that I get to be at the center of it, learning and engaging with all of them. So thank you for this incredible opportunity. Thank you to the universe. Thank you, God. Thank you, everyone who is on our platform. And thank you to all of you who support our work. I do have two quick messages. The first is, in case you didn't hear, my second book is out, Adversity to Awesome. It became a #1 Amazon bestseller in 2 or 3 hours after it was released. And this book is a compilation of stories from 12 authors. I interviewed everyone, and then I took their interview that was on Zoom. I had it transcribed into words, and then I worked with my book coach. We sent the manuscript back to each of the authors, had them sign a release and send it back to us. We put it into third person, and then we put it together in the book. So the first chapter is something that happened to me many decades ago that I lived in shame and I didn't want to talk about. And I put it in this book so I could release it and I could help one person or more come forward and realize that they're not alone and you don't have to live in shame and in silence. The other thing is, I'm really excited as we talk about 3D world. I'm not including this, but I started a jewelry line and I'm working with my longtime jeweler, Margie Cedrone. She's an artisan jeweler. She makes most of my pieces that you see I have on today. And this is the first item. It's the Dr. Jaclyn bracelet. Of course, you will not be getting Dr. Jaclyn on your bracelet. Why would you do that? I don't know. So this is in sterling silver with gold and then diamonds. So if you're interested, you can go over to my other website, drjaclyn.com. You can also order logo merchandise for USA Global TV. You can order logo merchandise for Dr. Jaclyn and just be part of our community here. That would be terrific. And again, you just go over to the websites. All right, that's all we have for now. I hope you have a beautiful weekend, and I hope you channel your energy in a direction that is really helpful for you and also for others. Thanks again. I look forward to seeing you on Monday. Bye for now.